All right, guys, so I'm finding me a little time this evening to shoot another video that was kind of an idea that came to me while I was watching a video from a fellow YouTuber. And I'm going to kind of describe what this guy was saying, but I'm not going to use any names, of course, because I don't want to, in the last video, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But I had this thought. And this goes back to my most popular video where I discussed the quote-unquote useless spay blade on a traditional trapper knife. That video has got like 50-something thousand views. But in an attempt to be creative, I sort of titled that video, and then I tried to make everybody watch all the way to the end to hear the point about what I thought about the Spay blade. And so I think a lot of people kind of just saw the title where I was talking about a useless Spay blade, because that was actually a sarcastic kind of a remark. And I think a lot of people didn't watch all the way through, and they assumed that I really thought the Spay blade was useless, when in fact I'm one of the guys that was kind of rooting for the Spay blade. But I had so many people in that video, and they still do it to this day. They come on and they say, well, the Spay blade is great for skinning deer, or the Spay blade is great for basically skinning deer. Kept coming up and kept coming up and kept coming up. And I said, hey, look, I actually made a pinned comment. I said, y'all are missing the point of this video. I said, I totally understand that a Spay blade is good for skinning deer, processing game, all that sort of thing. The point I was making was all of these guys that say the Spay blade is useless, I was really just giving some ideas of just everyday chores that you can accomplish with the Spay blade besides neutering, castrating animals, because everybody says, oh, nobody does that stuff anymore. Well, I don't need that old useless Spay blade. Everybody says that, almost everyone. There's a few guys out there that root for the Spay blade. But I even showed in that video just how similar the profile is, okay? Now look right here. Look at this. If I ground off this part of the blade on the Spay, I would literally have 2 clip points. I mean, yeah, the clip has the tiniest little bit of belly right here, but when you look at the where it starts to round up, I mean, look, guys, come on. You gonna tell me you can't slice your sandwich with a Spay blade? There's literally nothing you can do with that clip besides piercing, which you probably shouldn't be doing with a slip joint anyway. There's nothing you can do with that clip that you can't do with that Spay blade. They're literally the same profile. Like I said, I could grind this Spay blade off even with the clip point, and I would have the same profile on both blades. So the other day, now keep in mind, people are calling this useless because there's no need to have a Spay blade on a knife in a modern society we live in. This is a White Sparks, by the way, and the reason I pulled this one out as opposed to any others, this was actually a gift that I received from an old maintenance man that worked with me. He retired, but we had got to be really good friends in the couple of 2 or 3 years that he worked at the same place I work. And he comes back up there every once in a while. He always has a knife, and sometimes he just wants to show me something, or in this case, he actually gave me this. He said he got it for like $10 at a flea market, and it's never been used. It still has a factory edge. Pretty cool. So I brought that one out. I also brought this one out. But like I was saying, the profiles on those 2 blades are so similar that other than piercing, there's really no difference in those 2 blades. You can still cut rope. You can still cut weed eater lines, zip ties, open boxes. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me. But I don't think you can prove me wrong. I just showed you how similar those profiles were. So I made that point in that video, and everybody kept saying, oh, I like skinning deer with my Spay blade. Well, of course you do, because that's what it was designed for. It was designed for working with, castration. The reason for the blunt tip is so you do not pierce, okay? And so for that same reason, it makes a great skinning blade. I feel like everybody knows that, but that's the comment I kept getting. So I've been wanting to touch on this topic again and be right up front at the beginning of the video so everybody understands. This is a fine example of what many will call an improved trapper. And in their minds, it is improved because it has a Warncliffe in place of the Spay blade. Now, I'm not thick in the head. This is a jam up set of blades on this trapper. And in many ways, I might prefer this myself, This is a knife right here that I found on eBay for like $50. I bought it. It has exceptional fit and finish. This is a smooth red bone. It is absolutely gorgeous. This was one of those knives that I bought and I said, okay, I really got lucky with this one. I mean, the fit and finish is perfect. Great action on both blades. Now it's stainless. If it were carbon steel, it would really be a cherry. But I've used it a little bit. I think it's even got some dirt and stuff in it right there. But yeah, I use these things, not every day, some of them, but I will get them out and use them. But yeah, got really lucky with this one. This is what many would call an improved trapper because it has that Warncliffe in place of the Spey. So that's the reason I brought that out, just to show y'all the difference there. I know a lot of guys have this knife in the 6.5 bone stag, and they look really good too. So anyway, I'm watching this fella the other day, and he's got this knife, and this knife is set up like a copperhead. I think it would be more considered a trapper, but it was set up like a copperhead. It had a clip point, okay, and it also had a pin blade, just like that. And the guy says, I like this way better than a trapper because instead of that useless Spay blade, this one has a pin blade. And it sort of dawned on me just the moment I heard him say that. You're going to call a Spay blade useless because 99% of the people in the world, maybe even less than that, but we'll just say 90% of the people in the world aren't castrating animals with a pocket knife anymore. You're going to call that Spay blade useless, even though I've proven, got some dirt, even though I've just proven that the profiles are so close to one another that there's really nothing you can do with the clip that you can't do with the Spay. And then you're going to call that Spay blade useless, and then you're going to tell me that you prefer a blade that was designed to sharpen quills for riding? Now, son, I'm going to tell you right now, I have in fact castrated hogs with a Spay blade on a pocket knife. It was years ago, but me and my grandfather and my great uncle, we raised a hog one year, and after it got to a certain age, we got that thing down. I was holding it by the ears. My great uncle used a Spay blade to castrate that hog. But I'll tell you what I've never done. I've never used a pin blade to sharpen a quill. So now tell me which blade is quote unquote useless, okay? Now look, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, yeah, it's a pin blade, blah, blah, blah. It's still just a small spear point. It's got, it's very, what's the word? It's just very all-purpose, pierce, open a letter, blah, blah, blah. I get it, guys. I get it. There's many, many, many uses for that blade right there, okay? I know it's called a pin blade, and it was just, first designed for sharpening quills, a pin in the old days. But I'm going to tell you something. On a knife like this, that has a clip point, I am never, and I mean never, and you may pull your pen blade out every day. I can't speak for you, but in my case, okay, I will never pull this blade out and use it over this one. I don't see a need in it. I feel like I've got more control with the longer blade. If I'm using the tip of the blade to open a letter or something like that, I've got my hand farther away than I would if I were using the pen blade. In a knife that is set up with a clip and a pin, I will rarely, if ever, will I use this pen blade over this clip. Now y'all tell me if y'all are different or if you feel the same way. This knife, by the way, is a gem. This is a, I believe it's a 75 or maybe a 76. It's in the 70s. It's hard to read the dots because this knife has some real old patina, but I inherited this knife when my father-in-law passed away, and man, you can just tell he used it. But the blades, rather the springs, I should say, are just phenomenal on this older piece. So like I said, I'm just trying to give y'all a little history of what the knife that I'm showing you. But to get back on topic, in a setup where I've got a clip point and a pen blade, I'm hardly ever going to pull that pen blade out as long as I've got that clip blade there to use. Now, the exception to that is, all right, y'all check this out. This is a new acquisition here I made a trade for. This is a 1970, because you can actually see the dots on this knife. 1970 case razor. Okay, now, this knife has that one-arm razor design, which I think is really cool. I've always been kind of a fan of these razor knives. I just think they look neat. This knife, in fact, has a pen blade, and in this case, I will use this pen blade. I used it the other day to snip some little zip ties off of a new wristwatch I bought, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. Got another good deal on one, or two actually. But I use this pen blade with its point to work up under a zip tie and unpackage this watch that I bought. I only did that because in this rare case, I didn't really want to use this tiny little tip for that task, and I was glad I had this blade. But this is a different setup than the copperhead, because if I would have been carrying this copperhead, I would have just used this clip point to get in there and get that zip tie. So now let me ask you, okay? This knife has great action, half stops. I mean, there's just something about these older knives. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really digging these older vintage knives lately. But so let me ask you, what's more useless? This full-size Spey, which has such a similar profile to the clip, or is this more useless when you've already got a clip point blade there to use? Okay. Now you can make the argument that, oh, well, I'm never going to use the Spey blade if I've got the clip. And you might even say that you'd rather have the Warncliffe and the clip, because they do in fact have different profiles. But the point of this is if you're going to use this clip point to cut your sandwich, or cut you some twine, some string, some rope, open a package, you've literally got the same blade here. It just happens to have this high, this high brow, or whatever you want to call that. Where in this case, you've got this big old clip point blade, and basically the difference here is the length. Basically that's the main difference. This clip on this case is a little more pointy than that, so as far as piercing and stuff goes, or maybe, like I said, trying to wiggle up under a tightly, zipped up zip tie, this would probably be a better option. But yeah, if y'all understand what I'm saying, if I've got this knife, I'm rarely ever going to pull this pen blade out. Where if I've got this knife and my clip blade starts to get dull, I feel like I can pull this out and accomplish the exact same thing. So that was just kind of where I wanted to go with this one. Didn't really want to make this one terribly long. Just kind of something I had on my mind, and I kind of wanted to get it off my mind, you know, before too much time passed. Here's a knife here. This is a little Barlow. This is another vintage piece, and I may have shown this in a video, I think around Christmas time. You'll see this one's got a little nick in the blade. This one was a two blade, and it had a pin blade that was broken slap off at the heel here. So I actually sent this one to my buddy Kent Smith, and he did a blade delete on this for me. So now I've got this nice little single blade Barlow, and it's got a pretty good action too. You know, all these older knives have the half stops and stuff. But yeah, so here's kind of my little vintage case collection as it stands. Might could even throw this one in there because it's from the 70s as well. This one here is actually from the 40s through the 60s. But yeah, so there's that, kind of my little vintage knives here. Here's something I haven't shown on a YouTube video. I picked this little lighter up at an antique store. You can see it says American Aiken Oil Company Incorporated, American Oil Products, Sheffield, Alabama, and it gives a P.O. box number down there. This is not a Zippo, as you can probably tell. It's built similar to a Zippo. I mean, very similar, but when you've got it in your hand, you can just tell it's not a Zippo. It's in fact a Park. Having a hard time reading it, but it's made by a company called Park, and anyway, just something cool I found for $5 at the antique store. You know, I've got some Zippos here. Everybody seems like they like to see these Zippos these days, but I've got a few real Zippos, and I just picked that one up for $5. But yeah, I was also thinking about my 5 favorite slip joint knives, and as luck would have it, I'm not going to include this one, and I'm not going to include this because it's a lockback, but I would have to say that just as kind of a quick little take on this, these would probably be my 5 favorite slip joints right now, just because I've really gotten into the vintage pieces. So like you say, this one's not vintage and this one isn't vintage either, but these are in fact some of my favorite slip joints. Now I've got some everyday users over here. I could easily put this carbon steel 75 Stockman in there as a favorite, but the ones I'm really digging right now are these older vintage knives, and like I said, this one's had a special place in my heart because it was just number one, it was a good deal, and number two, it's just built so well, and I do in fact like that Warncliffe. So for those of you who prefer this style of trapper, hey, I'm with you. It's a great set of blades right here. And then of course my Grail knife, my GEC 47 Stag that I got in a heck of a trade, has got to be in there too. But yeah, as a real quick off the cuff 5 favorite slip joints, that would probably be them right there. Got this little dude for $15. I may have mentioned that in another video, but look at this bone. I mean, this bone is exquisite. So nice. I mean, I polished this thing up and it looks so good. I know the blade has probably been broken off and reground because of how short it is, but I don't even care. I've peeled a few apples with it, and I've done a few small things with it, even though it has that nick in the blade, and it doesn't matter. It does all the same work. It might be a little rough when it hits that nick, but these are just so cool. And you talk about soul and character. I mean, look at this guy. I use this a lot. Y'all probably, if y'all follow me on Instagram, y'all seen this several times. But man, I use this thing. I take it to work. I slice my apples with it. This older steel seems to not take a patina as quick as the, I guess you call it virgin steel. This one already had some patina when I got it, and I've been slicing some apples and kind of adding a little to it. It's not turning any major cool colors because it's already pretty well patinaed from one end to the other, but yeah, great half stops. This is a great size too. You know, it's right there with the it's right there the same size as a copperhead, maybe just a tad smaller. But that call it like a 3 7/8 inch, just a perfect size for you know, putting in your pocket or putting in a slip. And so yeah, this is just kind of a look at some vintage knives and the trapper that I had out here for the comparison. Before I go, here's another watch I got on sale, and I'm kind of a Timex guy. I had a Timex when I was in school, you know, when I was a youngster, and it wasn't exactly like this. It had a tan leather band, and but I do remember it having a green face. But I got this knife here. This was originally a $46 knife. I said knife, watch. This was a $46 watch. They had, I don't know why, but they had this thing marked down to $5. And I actually bought another one that was very similar to this, but it had a canvas band that was the more traditional latch with the holes in it. And my wife saw it, and she was like, I think I'm going to take this one. I got them both for $5. I said, well, baby, if you like it, you're welcome to it. It's a little bit tight on my wrist anyway, so... but yeah, I guess I'm starting to become a watch guy. You know, discount clearance aisle watch guy, that is. But yeah, this one's been pretty cool. It's a little bit smaller face than those Casios I was showing you all the other day, so it seems like it doesn't, you know, kind of bother my wrist as much. But yeah, there's a quick look at that. So that's about it, guys. I'm going to leave y'all with it. Let me know what you think about the useless Spay blade versus what I'm going to call the useless pen blade. I really don't think any of them are useless. They all have their place. They will all cut if they're kept sharp. And so no, none of them are useless. That's why it kind of eats me up when people go, ugh, I hate a trapper. I hate that Spay blade. It's just useless. No, it's not. Don't be obtuse. You can still cut a sandwich. You can peel an apple, slice an orange. Whatever you're going to do during your day, you can use a Spay blade for. And I guarantee you there's going to be some guys in the comments that tell me they use their Spay blade all the time. And it doesn't have to be for skinning an animal, okay? So anyway, y'all have a good one. That was my feather ruffling video for the week. And I hope to catch y'all around the next one.